Welcome to Automate Your Agency. Every week, we bring you expert insights, practical tips, and success stories that will help you streamline your business operations and boost your growth. Let's get started on your journey to more efficient and scalable operations.
Okay, so this is one of the, I would say, hardest things to get into and to do correctly as your team grows. Alane, you and I, maybe more than me than you, struggled with this and continue to still struggle. And I think this is a really interesting topic that will be great for us to discuss today, just as a reminder on all of this stuff. And that is change management. And that sounds like a
Mhm.
stupid corporate word.
I know it really does. But what else do you call it to introduce the topic?
Yeah. So really, it is anytime you make a change in your business, it affects your team. And if you do it wrong, your team hates you,
And they may not tell you that they hate you.
but they do.
They'll talk about you behind your back.
Yes. Yes. And if you do it right, they're still not going to like it, but it's better than them hating you.
Yeah, it's a faster transition. You've got more champions. You've got people that are excited about it because you are making a change, hopefully for the better. And you want them to be on board with it. If you're making a change for the worse, then, that's a different topic. But this
That's a
is
different
change.
episode.
Yeah, that's a whole different thing. But you're having change management because you're putting in a better way of doing things, I hope.
So it's interesting that we already went down this path because I think as leaders and as founders and as entrepreneurs, yes, this is the way we think.
Mhm.
But our team members are employees, they're vendors, they're contractors, they're not founders, they're not generally entrepreneurs. And so even if we tell ourselves this is for the better, it doesn't always come across that.
Mhm.
It doesn't come across that way to the team. For example, like fear can set in, fear that this is just more work. I already have too much work. And now Micah wants to do X, Y, and Z. How am I going to do that on top of it? Or it's already working the way that we have it now. Why do we
Why
need
you
to make
change it?
change?
Well, and there's another fear. Are they putting all this in place because they're gonna replace me?
Yeah. Yeah. I think just kind of starting with like putting ourselves in the mind state of our team. Another one that we've run into is we've already tried this before and it didn't work. Why is it going to work this time? Not just in our team, but I hear that in a client's teams as well. I think there's two that while prepping for this episode, I wrote down that I think is all just like completely coming from a team member's mindset. And the first one is, I don't get how this is going to help me personally.
Right.
That's a big one. And insecurity or the fear of feeling incompetent. AI agents, I've never even used ChatGPT yet. What if I prompt wrong? What if I do this wrong? How am I going to learn this system? How am I going to adapt to this change? Like, I just learned how to do the previous change and now we're already on the next thing.
Yeah. And change management, like there's so many like nuances to this and keeping yourself in check that you're not doing it too often because it does wear people out.
Yes.
And so you need to have a balance between what are you changing and then what can you just improve on the what you already have in place so you're not changing things. But you do want to be making improvement. But if you're constantly, hey, we're going to try this and we're going to try this and now we're going to implement this, man, people get exhausted. And it's a lot of knowledge that just doesn't have enough time to seep in and they can't become a master of anything because the change happens too often.
Hmm. Yeah. 100%. And all of this comes down to communication.
Yes.
So, for example, if somebody is thinking, they might not say it. They might say something like, "We don't have time for this." Maybe if they're a person that would speak up. But otherwise, they're going to just be thinking, "I'm already overwhelmed." And so kind of being proactive in communication when it comes to making a change and just saying like, "Hey, we're going to get through this first step." Taking a phased approach, taking it one step at a time, and then having stuff prepped so that you can show your team, this is how we're going to break it down. That immediately is going to ease that concern and just address kind of, okay, maybe it's not so bad. Kind of going to the next concern. What we're doing already works. Why do we need to change it? I think communication on that is why
Mhm.
we need to make the change, what that means for the business, and maybe even more importantly, what that means if we stick with the old way.
Right, and it could be As a leader, you may not always want to talk about margins because then people feel like they're just a number. But talking about, well, we're hearing this from our clients. They're frustrated. We've heard these now, 15 different times this month. Bringing these things up, like we do need to improve our systems. And sometimes maybe you don't want to talk about it as a monetary value, but as a time value. You know what? When you were on vacation last time, Sarah, we had to bug you 4 times to get this information. What I really want is for you to take a vacation and us not have to bother you. Ooh, man, that feels good. I
Yeah.
can take a vacation and not be bothered, and we wanna put this in, I can get behind that.
I mean, what you're talking about is the concept of what's in it for me.
And that's only what people only care about. They don't care
Right.
about you.
Well, and as entrepreneurs and leaders, we're doing it the same way. Why do we want to make a change? Because we can see that this change is better for us, whether it's the bottom line, whether it's easier management, whether that's a potential exit. We're making changes, let's be honest, because it's better for us.
Mhm. And sometimes too, it could be like I think about where this frustration comes in because where are leaders looking to make change management? They are looking to simplify their process. They want to be able to give their employees time away. They want themselves to be away. But also maybe they are looking to grow and scale past where they are and the way that they were doing things aren't working. Well, that can also be scary for a team. Change is scary. Well, why are you looking to grow? Well, maybe that gives new opportunities to the employees that you have. Now you have career paths and career growth for those that,
So true.
and that gives you longevity with employees when they can see a path. So I'm just giving ideas of, some of the things that we hear as a negative and then what does that really look like for them? Okay, well, I do want to grow. I'd like to be at the VP level. I'd like to be at the director level. Well, if our company grows, then those positions open up and I could be a part of that.
Yes. Yes. That's exactly right. I'm thinking about when the obstacle or when the objection comes up for you already tried this, this isn't going to work. I think having a discussion around asking the team, well, what happened before? Why do you think it didn't work before? Getting that stuff on the table and addressing it because then there's no more objections.
Mhm.
But you take that data and you work together with the team to say, this is how we're going to do it differently this time. We've learned from our mistakes. Let's try it. It still may not work. It may not be perfect. We're going to iterate, but at least addressing that rather than just repeating it over and over and saying, let's try this again. And we're not going to communicate why or how or what will be different. And everybody is going to grumble about it. And then they're getting paid to do it. So they're going to do it, but nobody's
Mhm.
happy.
Yeah. A lot of times what I see too, and I've seen this when we were really naive in change management and how poorly we did it early on, where we were constantly just ripping band-aids,
Yes.
just throwing people to the wolves, throwing them in there and not having training in place. I feel that even as a leader, if we decide to do something else immediately and I don't have time to train myself on it, then I'm trying to make a change from an old way to a new way and not knowing how to use the new system at the same time.
Yes.
That is so frustrating being anybody in an organization and especially an employee because man, does that positive change turn into a negative really quickly.
Yep. Yep. I think what you're bringing up here, Elaine, is something really important with change management and just kind of working through this whole process. And like anything, especially in business, you have these, whether it's internal pressures or external pressures, telling you we need to make a change fast. We need
Mhm.
to solve this problem. But in order to solve that problem, you actually have to slow down.
Mhm.
So slowing down and building the training like you're saying, creating demonstrations of what this could look like, building a prototype first and saying this is the outcome we're trying to achieve, this is what it looks like, this is what it means, starting with a pilot, right? Just getting out there, and we're not going to do the whole company, we're not
Right.
going to do every system, we are going to start here at this one little piece, we're going to prove that it works together.
Mhm.
If it doesn't work, we're going to take a step back. It's not hurting our company. It's not, let's all build this together, but one step at a time. And it's that slowing down rather than full force, breaking down the walls. Sometimes you have to do that, but typically with change, it needs to be slower than as a leader you ever want it
Yeah.
to be.
It is so much slower and you can still move quickly. Like I always think about Micah, this whole idea of the trying it out with a small group first. And I
Mhm.
think about the times that we didn't implement something versus when we did. Because man, did we save ourselves so much stress and anxiety and false starts with just that one little thing. And, our small groups look differently. I remember with there was some that we tried at our previous company that we built up that didn't it was us, before Slack or a Slack competitor. I don't
Hip
even remember
chat.
what it was called. Chat. And we were thinking about
It's
switching to
ingrained
it.
in my memory because it was traumatic.
Yeah, and things don't work for different reasons. The
Mhm.
UI sometimes it's just not a friendly UI, and that might be just all that it is, or some functionality might not be there, but we always test with a small group, and who are the people that are passionate about making this change? They need to be a part of the group, and then somebody else that is outside of their bubble, because if it's just you and another person and you're in the same department, then that's gravy for you because you already know how you work and your team works. But if you want to implement that across departments, you just hit a snag.
So, I'm gonna throw out the corporate term, champions.
Yes, champions. So you want your champions in there and getting the feedback. Did it work? Is this going to work across the departments? Is it going to work for all levels? Then you can decide, okay, well, if this is a company wide thing, is it going to work? Or is it just a leadership thing? Is it going to work? But you have some input before you throw people in. So
Mhm.
you have your champions, you decide yes or no. That saves you so much pain, even though that adds time to your process. But sometimes we know within 3 days, no, this is not going to work. It doesn't do this, this, and this. We're going to toss this idea out right now. Sometimes it's longer. Sometimes it might be a month long of playing around with it because we're really liking it. We're feeling pretty good. Okay, we've done it a couple of different ways. All right, this feels friendly. We're going to do this.
I mean, honestly, sometimes it's an afternoon. You can pilot something and you have complete team buy-in by lunchtime. That's a good indicator that
But it's time.
this
It's
this
going to
is
work.
ready to go.
Yeah.
But again, like if we were to take that scenario where you force a change without piloting, without giving people a little bit of ownership, it doesn't matter how good that change is, you're going to get pushback.
Hmm.
Just by going down this path a little bit, testing it, communicating, building some training around it.
Hmm.
Let people be the champions. You know, some people will rise to the top in different changes based on different things. Celebrate them,
Hmm.
recognize them. All of that can just completely change the outcome of how your business evolves. And I know we mentioned this in previous episodes recently, Elaine, but how quickly things are changing. This is one of the most important things. With how quickly things are changing, if you're not good at change management right now, get good.
Hmm.
Practice. Like, think about it. Try different things within your own business culture because if you suck at this, you're in deep shit in the
Yeah.
next 12 months.
Well, and you can't ever make change then without
Exactly.
turnover. You don't want employee
Exactly.
turnover. You're trying to improve the system for your employees because turnover is so expensive. And so let's get to the so we can kind of go like along the storyboard here is you've got your champions, you've tested things out and this is a solid system that you want to implement. That could be a software, that could be a process, that could be anything that you're trying to change. The next piece is defining how your company is going to use it and then create training.
Yep. Yep. So a standardized way of
Yes.
using it is so critical. I'm so glad you brought that up because we see this time and time again, especially with project management tools. We've decided to implement Asana. Cool. We've decided to implement Monday. Awesome. Doesn't matter what it is. The second we decide that, it is now everybody use it without a standardized way to train people on it and to use it. It doesn't work. It's painful.
And I learned from our own experience about how painful that experience is without training. And when we implemented Asana and we moved away from
Right.
Basecamp and we didn't provide, like all the things that Mike and I talk about, we have learned painfully. And we're trying to help you not be there. So this was, I don't know, gosh, 10 years ago. Not, I guess maybe 10 years ago, 10
I
years ago.
like that description. You didn't say we learned it the hard way like everybody else does. No, we learned it painfully.
We
It was
did.
that visceral.
I was because it is such an emotional tie for me when we implemented Asana without any training, and I was so pissed because it was very different. The way that you did your had to know short codes to write in the description to do bullets and everything. And everything at that point in our business was overwhelming. And I just had to learn how to write a description in a task from scratch. So I didn't have training. It was just something that was decided for our company and implemented, and it was hard. And I was an owner of the company. So if I felt that way, our poor employees were even more frustrated and confused. And so that was really painful. So then now, even for our clients, we have our basic courses because at the start, you at least want people to know the basics of that project management system to make it easier for change.
Yep. Yep. So training can come in a bunch of different ways. And this is something over the years. Now, tools like Loom makes it a lot easier. And AI is making it easier because you can record a video, you have the visual, you have the audio, transcript and captions give us the written. So that covers a lot of learning types and a lot of basis for that. So just starting with Looms can get you really far. Hands-on training, being there in person, there's still something to be said to that. Pairing people up. So, Alane, for example, you learn differently than I do. I look at software, I love clicking around, I like learning new stuff. You
Mhm.
look at software, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. You want to know you just want to know how it works. You don't like the clicking around. You don't like the problem solving. You're just like, how do I effing make bullets?
Yeah. It depends. If I'm the one initiating the software change, then I was the one that clicked around and figured it out. If I'm given the software to use, then I want to be given the training for it.
Interesting.
And I think that goes along with a lot of people. If you're in a leadership position, most likely, if you're championing something, you've probably played around with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, cuz you have ownership over it and you're trying to solve the problem. That makes a lot of sense. I think that's interesting. One of my favorite ways in this virtual world that we live in now is setting up office hours. And so giving people an opportunity to say, "Hey, we've implemented this change, but if you have questions, I'm available at this time. Jump in. Let's work through it as a group or one on one and just keep that door open, even if it's for, I'm going to jump on a Zoom. Here's the link. Jump in whenever you need."
Because they do need questions, just like clients have questions of you, employees are going to have questions for you. And really sticking to the standard way your company does things, because you need to train on that so they understand, but then also having your employees understand, no, this is the way we do it. And I'm going to give an example. And this is so, so common. You have your project management system, click up Asana or Monday, but everybody uses Slack to communicate project status. Where are things at? Okay, well, then why do you have a project management system? And so what happens is people will go to Slack and get like, hey, I have put that in ClickUp, but I haven't heard from you. Can you answer this? And now you're having a conversation about it in Slack. That conversation needs to go back to your project management system. Well, what's your way of doing it? If you need to bubble something up, great. Send me a Slack and say, hey, I've tagged you twice. I need this answer from you. This is the link to the ClickUp task that can you please get back to me? Then that sends back to the core place. So, what is your standard way of operating when you do change management? And you have to iterate it and reiterate it and reiterate it to where every employee understands this is the standard way our company operates with this process.
I think you're building up a perfect segue to the next topic that I wanted to talk about, which is identifying red flags. Because what we're talking about so far is change management. We do it right, and it's a perfect world. But when your team gets large enough, there's still bad apples, whether they're
Mhm.
trying to be or not. There's still red flags. There's problematic situations that are going to arise. For example, there might be the one person who is just like, I'm going to boycott this. I'm just not going to use the new project management system. I'm just going to use Slack. That's
Mhm.
it. I hate this new change. I'm not doing it. This can spread. There can be factions that are created and they can go and go, you know what, Elaine? Don't use Asana because we've already changed project management systems twice. We're probably not going to keep it. So you're wasting your time.
Mhm.
Maybe they're just having a bad day. Maybe they're not trying to spread the resistance, or start a revolution, but that happens.
Yeah.
We also see, and we have seen in the past, that people make workarounds. All right. Well, I'm just going to I'm just going to connect Asana to Slack so that it automatically pushes it to Slack. And I'm just going to keep using Slack. And I'm not going to tell anybody that I did that. And that's how I'm going to do it. Or they can be very loud
Yeah.
at public meetings or, group meetings or at lunches and say things like, Asana sucks. Like, I heard the owner hates puppy dogs or whatever, and like ignites this whole thing. All of that can happen with changes being implemented, and that leads to turnover, that leads to frustration, that leads to everything. So building a plan on how to, preempt and address this, even if you don't need to, it's better to be proactive and have a plan on this kind of stuff to really bring it all together. Like, have a conversation with this individual, start there.
Yeah. Well, Micah, that reminded me of whenever we merged with our competitor, with our previous business,
Hmm.
and we implemented Help Scout. And 99% of the team after day one was so excited about it because they could see all the benefits that I'd been saying. And our team had been using it for years. And one of the changes that happened when we moved to Help Scout, there's a bunch of things that Help Scout can do. And this was years ago, is we switched from communicating within our internal Gmail
Hmm.
with clients, because we were Google based, is you conversated with your clients in Help Scout. It was still your personal inbox. The only difference is it happens in Help Scout versus Gmail. And there's a number of reasons. Well, if you have a question, you can tag your manager in it and get feedback. You can tag the reputation manager in that you can reassign the thing. If you're on vacation, somebody else can jump in and start answering those. So it was like all these things that 99% of everybody on day one was like, holy cow, this is amazing. And I had one account manager that refused to change. So, well, when you move into a system, the benefit of it is that now you have metrics to measure.
Hmm.
And so I could see response time. I could see the number of tickets. Well, I started using that as a measure, just like, hey, how are we doing? Not calling anybody out in the beginning, just like, hey, let's just see what we're doing here. And not everything is negative. If it takes you 4 hours to get back to a client, why? Let's dig there. Not that you're doing anything wrong. Help
Yeah.
me understand.
Not you're failing. This sucks. Like, don't
Right.
do it in 4 hours, do it in 20 minutes, right? I'm calling this out because I think this is so important to this topic is you have to ask the question first.
Yes. So I had this one though that refused to do the change. So it looked like she did 0 work every time I was checking. So I have a conversation. Hey, this is the new way of doing things. We have all this training. You've been through all the training. Well, I don't want to do it. That's fine, but this is what you're measured on. So if there's no metrics, then I have nothing to measure you on and it looks like you're doing no work. Now, this is a much more, I'm paraphrasing a lot.
Yes. Yes.
And so I'm like, this is our company way of doing things. This is how it needs to happen moving forward. And it's to help you. Like everybody else is loving this system where it's not, no one else can see your emails unless you tag or reassign for when you're on vacation. So another week goes by, 0 metrics, still wouldn't do it. So we have the system after 3 times, we're having the same conversation. There hasn't been a change. The only thing I can assume at this point is you really have no work. So or you're really not communicating with your clients because if you're not willing to make the change, you're hiding something, you're not working, or the data is true and you're not conversating with any of your clients. None of these things are good. So we ended up having to let her go because of that. But we had the metrics, and that's what we could always tie it back to is the metrics. What are we looking at? You hold people accountable. And if people don't want to get on board, now you have the data to say why they can't be there any longer. If you don't have the data, you're making assumptions and you don't know which ones are your great employees and which ones are just putzing along without having that system in place.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is a really great story that you just shared, Elaine, about how red flags can come up and why you need to be proactive. Because every time there is change, not every time, a lot of times when you do make changes in a business, it is to create accountability. It is to get better visibility. It is to create transparency into what's going on so leaders can make better leadership decisions.
Mhm.
With when that happens, you do illuminate the pockets of employees that have been skirting by without that accountability. And when that spotlight is shown on them or shined on them, that is all of a sudden them going, I'm a dog in a corner. I'm going to bark and bite. I'm going to act ferocious. I'm going to act out because, oops, I really haven't been doing that much. And now I can plainly see that is going to be visible and I don't know what to do.
So all of these things can help improve change management, what we're talking about. And then when the change management happens, how to start identifying who's not on board with it. Because you do want to have a healthy company culture, and one negative person can deteriorate the entire rest of the company.
Yes.
That one
100,
person.
100%.
And so, that's what you're looking for when you're making a change. Because again, we're looking to make positive changes in our organizations. And so when change management happens, having the accountability in place, having the illumination in place so that if people aren't on board, that's okay. There's going to be another company that's a better fit for them.
Well, and it goes back to the concept of champions too,
Hmm.
because you're kind of looking at each end of the spectrum. You've got the people that are super excited about it, but you also have to know who's the least excited about it and handle both sides.
Hmm.
So I think to kind of wrap this up, one final point that I would want to make about all of this is springing changes is bad. In addition to planning for champions, planning for the red flags, is planning a timeline.
Hmm.
So think about things like 2 weeks before you want to start implementing or even just start training, do an announcement. Hey, this is what we're thinking about doing. Teams and people need time to process that.
Hmm.
It can't be the day before because that night they're not going to sleep wondering, what does this change mean? And so if you start a couple weeks beforehand, you give people the time to go, okay, maybe they don't sleep that night, but then over a week, it's like, okay, I can see some positives to that. Or maybe some things happen in their day to day where they're like, yeah, that sucked. Okay, I kind of get why this change is going to happen. And then a week
Hmm.
before you begin the training, do an official announcement. We are doing this. This is what we're launching. Here's why. All the stuff we talked about on this. Then the week is the first official week of the change is training week,
Hmm.
right? Go in and offer that support, provide the assets, give the Loom videos, whatever you need to just get people comfortable with what they're doing so that they're feeling this is where it's going to go. And then you can phase it out from there. Once they're trained and they have that basis, they can start running the pilots. They can do things in parallel. There's a little bit of the new system, a little bit of the old system. Let's just test the waters. And then that transitions into okay, now we're eliminating the old system and moving into the new system. And then longer term, it's the iterations that we've been talking about. So how do we optimize?
Hmm.
How do we keep this improving? More and more champions are coming out. The red flags are being handled. And it's this, again, way slower than any of us ever want. But like, it's that evolution and that kind of timeline that's going to make all of this easier for everybody, make it far more successful. And maybe as important as a people management is, it's going to be a lot cheaper because you're not dealing with huge turnover, huge hiring costs while you're trying to make a change.
Yeah, absolutely. Micah, to close this out, I think one of the things that you've been really working on that I wanted to tell people about is that we have a 12-week course
Hmm.
launching, and change management is one piece of it, along with a lot of other things about systemizing and standardizing to where you can successfully launch a scalable system.
Yeah, 100%. It's all about this, all the foundational stuff that we talk about in all of our episodes. We're condensing all of our knowledge into a 12-week course. If you want to do it in 3 days, knock yourself out. We're not going to restrain, that, but it is all the knowledge that we can pack into one course so that you have it in writing, you have it in video, you have examples, you have templates to use, you have how to do things in Monday, Asana, and ClickUp, prepping everything for a scalable operation all the way through to automation and AI agents.
Yeah. If you're interested, shoot us a note. We'd love to see you there.